Warren Washington County Industrial Development Agency. Give me a second to... Okay, we're all hooked up. First thing we need to have a roll call.
Dave O'Brien.
He's here.
Joe LaFura.
Here.
Craig Leggett.
Here.
Bruce Ferguson.
Here.
Ginny Sullivan. Here.
Hi, Jenny.
Nick Caimano.
She waited outside till she
Present.
made the picture.
Major entrance.
Nick.
Present.
Okay. Mike Weil. Travis Whitehead.
Here.
Brian Campbell.
On his way.
Matt Simpson.
Here. Okay, we have a quorum, and next on the agenda, we need a motion to approve the board meeting minutes of November 19, 2018. Joe?
I'll second.
Nick? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, next we have our accounts payable, and I do have 3 invoices that came in after this was printed, which was Jarrett Engineering for $142.50. Fitzgerald Morris Baker Firth, $850 for ICC 4, and our membership to the New York State EDC, which is $750.
Did they do that all at once, or you want to amend, put this on the floor and amend it? You're going to put it on the floor and amend it? I move the payables for consideration. Second.
That is including...
No, not yet. According to him.
We gotta move the additional ones. Amendments include the additional ones.
Okay. Would
I'll
you...
second the amendment.
As listed, though.
I
see.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the amendment. Call the question, roll call.
Dave O'Brien.
Yes.
Joe LaFura.
Yes.
Craig Leggett.
Yes.
Bruce Ferguson.
Yes.
Ginny Sullivan. Yes. Nick Caimano.
Yes.
Travis Whitehead.
Yes.
Matt Simpson.
Yes. Okay, we'll move to our unfinished business, 2019 meeting dates. They are in their packets, right? Okay. There it is. Mr. Ferguson, have you taken a look at those? Make sure that...
It's all waiting your approval, Bruce. Keep going.
I can't find the list.
You gotta go back a couple pages, Bruce.
What am I looking for?
The dates for the meetings.
Months
Months of the year, and dates of the month.
Here.
We're good, it's not at the Washington County Fair, Bruce.
And 2 are scheduled for Salem, so...
But it's not jumping back and forth between the 3rd and the 4th week?
There are.
At the end.
But with reason.
With reason, yes.
You have
It
Tammy
was
Collier.
always the last year, they just are out their skelter. Do you want approval of these?
Would somebody like to move that?
I'll move it.
Second.
Okay.
Trying to hide it.
We have the schedule of what the executive meetings are? I don't see it on there.
You did not get that in your packet. It's 2
In the other
weeks
packet.
before the board meeting. The executive is the first Wednesday of the month, with the exception of February, that you believe.
When did they go to the first? It used to be the week.
I have to have enough time to allow to get board packets out, and the way it is right now, the executive committee meets on Wednesday, and if I don't get those out by noon, we're in trouble.
I like there being reasons for things.
I won't tell anyone.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further questions, discussion? Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, we'll go to the RFP for Audit Services. Joe?
Okay, so we got 3 bids. The executive committee met and opted to recommend McCarthy and Conlon for $9,600, which was the lowest bid. So we bring it before the board now.
What was his bid again? I can't remember.
$9,600?
Did we exclude the additional accounting work he was going to do, or is that?
Yes.
Okay.
This is only for the audit.
Okay, thank you.
The accounting services have gone away. For now.
I'll move we accept it.
Second by Mr. Whitehead. Any discussion? All those in favor? Roll call.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Dave O'Brien,
Yes.
Joel Luzera,
Yes?
Craig Leggett,
Yes.
Bruce Ferguson,
Yes.
Ginny Sullivan, Nick Caimano,
Yes.
Travis Whitehead, Matt Simpson.
Yes. Mr. Kamano?
In all fairness, I really should abstain on that. I'm very close friends with McCarthy, and I don't want any nonsense down the road. So I'm going to abstain.
We'll let the record show.
Are you comfortable calling him and calling the prior accountant and letting them know, or?
Yeah.
And then follow it up with a letter?
Yeah.
Thank you. Have you talked to Dennis, or should I talk to him?
I talked to Dennis already, and followed it up with a letter. He requested a letter signed by Matt, and we took care of that.
Okay. All right.
So we will be getting a final bill in from him. We haven't received that as of yet.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the tax abatement policy. Mr. Biddle?
Yes, sir. I actually flipped my due diligence to D on the unfinished business. In C, I'll be meeting with Mr. Valentine from Saratoga County after the first of the year, and Mr. Brandy was researching some others as well.
Okay.
So I hope to have something for the January meeting.
Okay.
Great.
And D, annual project survey report. We're all set.
That's what we moved,
Yeah,
no
fine.
ditto.
Okay.
No ditto at all. Mr. Whitehead, Miss Tammy, and I met about 2 weeks ago. I had several discussions with Mr. Valentine again, from Saratoga County, my new best friend in the IDA world. And we also, Miss Tammy had some conversations with was it the comptroller's office, Tammy? Yep. So we're trying to do due diligence across the board, and we received, I'll leave it at this, a worksheet from another county. Is that a fair way to put that?
It is.
That we're not comfortable utilizing.
Correct.
Good, okay. And so...
Not enough detail.
Not enough detail, but our original thoughts, and Travis, please chime in at any time, original thoughts were to go to an hourly basis of total hours for the year, and we need a follow-up. We had a meeting, and then Tammy and myself had further conversations with outside people. I think the three of us have to get back together to recommend, but I think we're actually going to end up in a great place. Save that, we're going to send out the current worksheet for this year with no recommended changes for this year, because we don't want to hold anything up.
Mr. O'Brien?
So if you go by hourly basis, you have a issue versus exempt versus non-exempt. You could assume that an exempt person works 40 hours a week. However, the definition of exempt person is they can work anywhere from 1 hour to 100 hours as long as they get their job done. So using that as a marker may create an issue with exempt employees by hourly basis.
So we're only talking, a full-time employee is a full-time employee, and that would be exempt. But what we're talking about is kind of the side of whether it's seasonal worker or part-time worker, how many full-time equivalents they speak. And do that by the number of hours worked in the year divided by 2,000 nominal hours. It does seem, we've done some looking, and there seems to be many definitions, many places we should look to find another definition. And will probably be the next definition.
The FTE, based on the company, could be 32, 35, 40. Could be as little as,
You know, we have to decide what we think is reasonable and go with that.
Exactly.
Because, like you said, it could be 4 different things, could be right.
Yeah, 52 times 4. But the thing is, we have to establish and agree on, which we'll recommend, what a full-time hourly equivalent is. And everything, as Travis has said, some places it's 30, 32, 35, 40. That's one that we will come with a recommendation, and happy to have a conversation. Two is, whether you're exempt or not, we're trying to get to how many FTE equivalents do you have for the across the panel of a year?
the complicating factor is when someone put in their number of employees they created, do we have a definition good enough so that we're going to match up? I mean, if they say they're going to create X number of employees, and they use 32 hours and we use 40,
We'll give that to them at the beginning.
They're giving us gross hours, though.
but you have a lot of people who are already in the system.
You can't hold those things.
But it doesn't make any difference. It's really a function of that company. If they're 35 hours or 40 hours or whatever, it doesn't make any difference. But what are they considering a full-time equivalent?
Whatever it is.
It's what we,
Yeah, it's what we are.
They're going to be giving us gross hours, aren't
We
they?
are.
yes.
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 Then we will calculate the full-time equivalent. They're going to give us gross hours, and then we'll figure out what is the full-time equivalent. based
For
on
our purposes.
Our
Correct.
purposes only.
And it doesn't mean if you have somebody that's salary that's 40 hours and they work 70 hours a week, they don't get to put 70 down. They're going to put 40 down.
Yeah.
Do we ask part-time versus full-time employees created?
It's just full-time equivalent, so it
Equivalent.
would be full-time plus whatever formula that's used, and that's where it gets really funny.
In the application, though, we do ask full-time and
That's what
part-time,
I'm
don't we?
doing.
So we, you know,
In the current application, that's what we put. And 1.5 part-timers equals 1 full-timer. I'm not comfortable with that because you can have a part-timer work, you can have 2 part-timers work 29 hours each. That's more than a full-time. Yeah, exactly, that's more than a full-time
As
equivalent.
long as when they fill the application, the definition's there, because they could be considered a part-time employee for the hours.
That's right.
Correct. And that's where we'll be very
they're
clear
giving
on
us
it.
gross hours.
And we'll have a bit of a, folks that are already in the system with the old way, and then we'll have new. But our goal here is to, in the end, from our discussion at the last meeting, our goal is to determine are people meeting their job requirements as promised over the course of 2 years? And then how does that relate into the tax abatements and so on that they've been funded and their promises congruent to that? Would that make sense, Mr. Chairman?
Certainly does. We need to be consistent so that,
Then, we're getting the numbers, and then if the numbers don't agree to what we're expecting, then you go back and talk to them. And,
Right.
you know, like when Tammy did that, we found out a lot of different things that they weren't considering when they were giving it to us. So part of it is just communicating back and forth,
So
too, once
it's-
you get those numbers.
it's requesting, in a way that is consistent with the way we're going to hold them accountable.
And the challenge is there's really no clear guidance on this from the state. There's no solid, clear guidance. That's why I asked Ms. Tammy to reach out to the state. And it is what it is. But I know for all of us here as volunteers, we want to do what's best for the community. And we want to do what's best for the people that are partnering with us to create jobs here. We want to be clear, set clarity and expectations.
Right.
So that we know from day one, and we know on 2 years and 5 years.
What's the policy if they don't make their FTEs?
Yeah.
Well,
Pick them up back and kill them.
But it would be, right now, we have the opportunity to go after a 2-year review and say, you didn't hit the jobs, and this is what you had in tax abatements and so on. You're not meeting, you need, as a clawback, you need to pay back X.
Yeah, it's part of the back and forth discussion.
But that's not a hard and fast rule. Each evaluation, each situation every time, right?
Right now, Mr. O'Brien, I would love for you to volunteer to come up with that policy because we're working on the hours.
The recapture policy?
I know you're my twin brother. You never set me straight.
Anything else you want to say?
but you're right, the ABO does say that the IDA has final say, you don't have to call back, you should. But we have clients that, good business condition,
Mm-hmm.
things like that.
I just don't think it should be a hard and fast rule. I think it should evaluate each circumstance because it may have changed for reasons out of their control.
But you start with a hard and fast rule, and then you go from there.
Right. If somebody built in 2008 with certain projections, they might not have met them by 2012, you know, on full-time employment. Yeah.
So did you volunteer to work on the recapture policy, Dave?
Eventually,
Okay.
when you get all the parameters set out, I'll help you out with it.
On 40 years, how many have we done? I'd say no.
Since I've been here, none.
The only one that I don't know that there was actual recapture, but the only one was the forum. I think that was the only project. The forum.
Yeah,
The recapture policy sets out the procedure that is to be followed, and it also sets out what you can and what they would be responsible for if they default on any of the...
Do we have a
terms of the-
recapture policy
Oh, yeah.
now?
Yeah.
We can get a copy of that, just so everybody can see what they have now, and
It was actually recently amended because of the new legislation a couple of years ago when they mandated the material factor piece. Then the recapture policy was updated.
or just get Dave a copy.
I have Miss Tammy's forwarding a copy to
You didn't-
Mr. O'Brien.
Stop with
so
the Miss
that-
Tammy, please. All I can think of is we see in the plantation. And Dave didn't tell us it was ugly sweater day. And everybody else was dressed.
Oh, the second person that
There's
said
a Christmas
that.
party today. How can we not dress for it?
Right?
Okay.
I dressed for it.
We'll get our picture together.
Jenny did too, so I don't know.
We'll move into the park business. Thank you, Mr. Biddle and Mr. Whitehead for working on that. We have a logging contract discussion that we've had, and Mr. Jarrett is going to have more discussions as they were a little hesitant to agree to the bond terms.
So the worry is that they don't agree to the bond, they decide not to go do the work on the other side of our property, and then they don't clean up our property.
They don't clean up our property.
It could be like those fir trees all over again.
Right. The fir trees, I'm unaware of
Way
that.
close to ground.
They grow slow.
Yeah, especially if you put the wrong ones in, or don't put them in at all.
Okay. Equistock.
There's discussions ongoing, I prefer to leave it at that, with all three.
Okay. With all three? Harmon Hill, TNG also?
No updates that you could share, or you just prefer not to? Okay.
Nope.
Okay. New business. Final budget for 2019 approval.
Yep. I know we talked about it last month, we made two little changes. One was the commission on the sale of land, so it matched what the new contract is hopefully going to say. And the other one was something with insurance to match up what we're actually going to pay for insurance. So everything else is the same. Just need to vote on it.
Just need what?
To vote on it.
I'll put it on the table.
I'll move it.
Okay, Mr. Camano,
Second.
seconded, and Mr. Campbell. Any discussion? Ready for the question? Roll call?
Dave O'Brien,
Yes.
Joe LaFira,
Yes.
Craig Leggett,
Yes.
Bruce Ferguson.
Yes.
Jenny Sullivan. Yes. Vince Camano.
Yes.
Travis Whitehead. Brian Campbell.
Yes.
Matt Simpson.
Yes. Okay, is there any...
Going forward, what is everyone's opinion on this as far as, do you like to leave the budget just the same for the whole year because we voted on it, or do you want to change it quarterly if something changes that's going to directly affect the numbers, like maybe something doesn't close this year but closes next year, which we weren't factoring in, or Equistock comes through and is going to buy $200,000 worth of land from us, or...
Mr. Biddle?
I'm a big fan of leaving the budget
Leave it alone.
static,
Okay.
because you can just, okay, you're 3 years from now, why was it this, and then why did it go to this? I would let the numbers fall where they are. We're taking averages and everything. That's just
Yep.
my opinion, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. O'Brien?
I hate to disagree with my twin brother, but I think that if you see a big change, especially if it's going to negatively impact, you should review the budget to make sure you're going to be in line and you don't have to make any other changes. I think you should amend it as needed. I mean, maybe not to that degree, but you should review your budget on a quarterly basis, and if there's a big change, that should be made and noted, and the reasons noted.
But it is noted, I think, we have meetings every month. And at those, if someone was supposed to come through in March, and it's not going to come through now in 2021, can't we amend it here? I mean, just annotate it here in the minutes?
You're assuming deals.
Yeah.
There are a lot of other things that could happen in a budget. For example, we get a much larger than expected legal bill. You need to make sure you got money in your current budget to take care of it. So you should evaluate those. I'm not talking about deals, I'm talking about the other things. Because the deals are going to take care of themselves with the income. It's everything else in there that may be extraordinary. You should be reviewing at least on a quarterly basis and making changes to make sure you've got the money to cover it through the rest of the year, or you have to do something else.
Well, that's excuse me just a second. That's a good example, though, the attorney's fee, not necessarily your attorney. But let's say something happens, and we have to now pay more, 10% more for the attorney. It's ours. We can vote on that, and we can say, it's not in the budget. If you go by what he says, you stick by your budget, you stick by your budget. And we can't afford it.
It doesn't mean that you don't spend money.
That's right.
The budget is a set that you try to achieve from day 1 through day 365. What you do in between, that doesn't mean that you're restricted. It doesn't mean that we have a $20,000 limit on paying FMBF if a bunch of people come in. No, that was just your budget. You have expenses, you have income to overcome that. So I would never submit to the board, we're capped at 20 grand, we can't give FMBF anymore. I'm making this up, I'm not picking on y'all. I started it, not him.
And the way we deal with it, I mean, we estimate expenses and revenue, and if we exceed a revenue, we make budget amendments, to reflect that increased income, or if there's an expenditure that's over, then we do that through resolution. But we don't change the budget.
Correct.
You're talking about your time.
We don't change the budget.
Correct. The budget stays static.
The flip side is your revenues could go down. I think you should be reviewing at least on a quarterly basis to make sure if there is a change, you should amend your budget to make sure you're going forward and know you've reviewed it. It's just a formality that says, I am reviewing my budget to see what's going on there.
Yeah, I recommend to most of my nonprofit clients that they adjust their budget. So the main reason is, so something happens in February, you're not explaining it every other month after that of why there's a variance. And so but they're in a different situation where they're probably very fluid, where if the revenue goes up by 10,000, they're probably going to spend that. If revenue goes down by 20,000, they're going to try to cut expenses. Where in our case, I don't know if we really are that fluid, because there's not a whole lot we can cut if we wanted to, expense-wise. And if we make more revenue, it's just going to be cash flow.
Mr. Campbell?
Well, most of our municipal budgets kind of work like if the money's not there, you can't spend it until you you have to put it in the budget to spend it.
By resolution.
You have to, by resolution. Your adopted budget will stay the same all year anyway, but it's with amendments, so that way you can always compare this year to last year and the year before, because you just go back and look at all the adopted budgets.
I don't, if you have a static budget, I'm happy. You can amend all day long, but you need a static budget at the beginning.
So, you're right, Brian, and we'll have the budget line, we'll have the amended budget.
Right.
And then you have the actual performance.
Yeah.
That's what we'll always have.
That I can...
Then you have the reference, the adopted budget.
Exactly.
So you're fine.
I agree, so it's transparency.
I think he's agreeing with us. He isn't used to working the way we do.
So we can't do it in QuickBooks like that, so.
I'm sorry.
No, I think it's
Stupid private sector.
Oh, it's true.
No, I think you want to do exactly what's already being done. That the budget is the adopted number, then there's the amended number, and you see it all. But you can't spend money unless you put it in the budget to spend it to begin with. It's not
Legal? No, I've never tried, so I assumed you could.
It's the same idea.
So the QuickBooks doesn't account for municipal, well, we're used to.
Dave said he might, though. I've never actually had a
I
chance
gotta
to
look at it.
Okay.
Then I have a question. This year's 2019 adopted budget has lot sale revenue is about 50,000. And then, current year here, it's, we're looking at $248,064 as, project fees new.
For 18 or for?
For 18.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm just wondering, where did that number come from?
The budget, or is that the actual?
Budget. Yep. Actual is 0.
So we haven't closed on the, yeah.
Yeah, so are we waiting then for,
Right, what deals are like
There are
about
two
to
open
close?
right now, Greenwich Preservation
Yep.
and Fire Tech.
okay.
Which both were open at the end of last year, and we assumed we're
And
closing.
carrying through, yeah.
But last year, whatever the numbers from last year's budget, those are going to take into consideration the hotel projects. There was a couple hotel projects, and those were large
They didn't close till this
admin
year.
fees. But
They didn't close till this year, did they? They closed this year? Then we had
the year before, yeah.
Aviation
But-
hospitality closed this year.
What's the actual?
Actual
Hospitality
0.
closed in 17.
Didn't the
Okay, this year.
trampoline place close this year?
No, that was the previous
Sit around for
Right, previous?
same.
Good.
And we approved the
Yeah, but
mortgage
they could
last
close in
month.
January. you know?
Hey, Craig, could we just have one?
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Joe asked me a question.
I know.
What do our gods of the state recommend, or do they?
When I was doing this budget, all it is it's a picture. That budget goes in from the very first meeting and is never touched again once it's certified. So what they see initially is what they see initially. And then next year, when I do it, it's just projections. It's nothing, it's not a reality budget for them, it's a projected budget.
Okay.
So they've made no comments about
No.
it.
Mr. O'Brien's going to check in to see if we can accommodate
I'll look at it.
everybody's concerns. Okay, RFP for banking services.
That has gone out to the 3 banks, Glens Falls National, TD Bank, and MBT Bank. They were the only 3 banks that responded to an initial phone call. I had made calls to 6 area banks. Mike Randy had reviewed what I had drafted up, made a couple of minor changes in that, and we sent it out last week. So they have it to get back to us for the January meeting.
What are they going to get back to us with? Like, what do you ask them?
We're looking for how they collateralize our money, at what service fees are, if there's anything different than what we're getting currently with Glens Falls National. And that was generated on recommendations of the ABO.
Okay.
Okay. There you go back to, we have officer considerations for 2019, which currently, the current slate, one discussion we had in executive park committee was to disconnect the vice and park chairman. And so the slate of officers proposed would be Matt Simpson, chairman, Dave O'Brien, vice chair, Brian Campbell, park chairman, Joe LaFlora, secretary treasurer, Craig Leggett, at-large member.
We don't vote on that large member, though, right? Appointed.
No,
That's
I
appointed.
think,
Chair's appointment.
so this is the first time I've had to go through this. Are there any nominations? Are there any nominations from the floor?
Could
Could you repeat that?
3 times.
Could you repeat that again?
3 times. You mean repeat it 3 times, or?
Yep.
Okay, are there any nominations from the floor?
I think you had too many people.
One more time. Are there any nominations from the floor for chairman, vice chair, park chairman, secretary, treasurer?
So I have a point of order. Does the slate you recommended have to be moved? The slate he mentioned...
You've always done it that way, and then it's at your annual meeting is when you vote on it.
Right, but he asked for any of the nominations, does that
Do we move it next month?
move it next month? He's asking for nominations from the floor. I was asking point of order, he's asking nominations from the floor. Does the slate he recommended, the nominating committee recommended, does it have to be nominated from the floor or not?
I don't think it matters as long as you have your slate prior to, you have to have the slate by your January meeting. So it can be in the announcement for the February annual meeting. So you could wait till next month.
So you said 3 times, you didn't get any.
Do we do anything? Do we offer that?
You want to move the slate?
Yeah, you can move it to the annual meeting for vote.
Traditionally, you have 2 from Warren County and 2 from Washington County. You're going with 3 from Washington County?
Yes, because we're going to separate the vice and park chairman.
That doesn't mean that has to come from Washington County.
No, but I think it makes a lot of sense with Brian being in Washington County.
It makes a lot of sense. What?
Close by.
It's 2 and 2, though.
No, it's not.
Oh.
No. 3 and 1. 3 and 1, so.
Why?
3 and 2.
Park chairman's not a voting member of the executive committee.
He's not going to be on the board?
It's one of our board members, but he's just the park chairman who would, and contracting officer that would deal with the day-to-day requirements of meeting with prospective.
So it's really 2 and 2.
Yeah, the votes aren't changing. They're not getting out of balance.
So we don't really vote on that one, so what are we voting?
Well, just separating, yeah. Oh, yes. I believe. Because it's a separate position, but it's not a voting position.
On the
Is it an
executive
appointed
committee.
position, or is it we vote on that position?
That could
Park
be-
chairman.
That could be appointed position,
You've always voted on that position,
but it was in combination with the vice chair.
right?
But when it wasn't,
So
it didn't used to be
I think
a
it's been, I don't know, I don't recall when it wasn't.
Call either. I don't think I think that's
Vice
appointed too.
chairman, I somehow became the park chairman, too, so.
We can check, we'll check the bylaws
You.
and see.
Yeah, I think we only vote on the 3.
You get
There's a
that.
multi-talented person, that's all.
That was out of necessity that it got combined.
Mr. Biddle.
I know back in the day when I was your age, the park chairman was appointed as well as the at-large by the chair.
Chair.
Okay.
There were 3, but that could have changed. I
No, I don't
have
know
not
if it
looked
did.
since
No.
2009.
I didn't want to make
It's just out of necessity.
one more person have to come to the executive.
Say it again?
To save having one more person having to attend, if you're going to be park chairman, you'll be expected to come to every executive meeting, so.
They didn't tell you that, did they?
He was told that.
I was told.
I should say it was explained to you.
Yeah. It's not voting, so, yeah.
No, but it's
It's not
important.
required.
Yeah.
Well, I believe it is.
Yeah.
So it's 3, down to 3. It's chairman, vice chairman, secretary, treasurer.
I didn't mean to have this conversation, but Bruce started it. If the at-large has,
That large is
I think
appointed.
before the next meeting, we should review our board requirements, because I'm not sure a voting member who the at-large is should be an appointed position.
No, that's right.
That should be elected, these voting members.
It's always been appointed, though.
I'm just saying that we should review it, because that, I asked our legal counsel.
It says that, the executive committee shall serve as the Industrial Park Committee. The Park Committee shall elect its own chairman.
This had a shrunk the
What
responsibility.
about the at-large?
The park committee down
To one person.
with the rest of the executive committee.
Well, yeah, but that was-
Right, the Executive Committee serves as
You could have 2 or 3 people.
the Park Committee, but then it says the Park Committee then elects its own chairman. So that would be done at the executive.
But what about the at-large? That's what Dave's questioning.
Well, if the at-large is a voting position, shouldn't that be elected, not appointed? I'm just asking your legal counsel. I don't care what the bylaws say.
Well, I mean, who knew that I had?
I'm just saying that if it should be an elected position, we should revisit our bylaws, if our bylaws are different. So I'm just asking a question.
Oh, Craig is.
Craig's the at-large.
Maybe we should recess, go to the dockside and come back.
With a couple of drinks.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, I can't see.
We can resolve this at the January meeting.
Yeah, we can resolve it.
Yeah.
Be something interesting to look at.
Okay. So we're not taking any action.
Service secretary.
I've lost my agenda here. There we go.
Mhm.
Okay, board survey.
Sir?
Yeah, Mr.
Right,
Vittle?
we have a combined.
You don't have a plan.
You have
Yeah.
a quorum here,
I don't think I
correct?
returned mine.
Yeah.
We do have a quorum.
Yeah.
I would highly suggest that you put forth a chair and a vice chair and a secretary so that we can operate in January with an elected leadership.
No, because the annual meeting isn't until February.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, I think if Washington County wasn't here, there'd be no confusion.
We're working hard to confuse the chair. Board survey. Everybody has been given a board survey. If you do not have one, please let us know.
I'll pay you to do that.
There are extras floating around. Please fill out and have in today.
Today?
Today.
It takes about 5 minutes.
How do we know if we haven't already?
I don't think we should be pressured to do it that quickly.
She sent it out to me a month ago.
Did
You, I have yours.
Tammy, didn't I send one in?
Did.
Yes, anybody
Do
that...
you have mine, Tammy?
No, I do not
Yeah,
have yours.
what?
I'm still waiting on your 2017.
And you don't have mine?
I do not.
I always look for something I can disagree with.
Agree with all these because half of them we
I think
just
we-
discussed and we don't.
I meant by the end of the meeting, it didn't have to stop the meeting here.
Well, keep on going then.
Okay, next we have a potential project. We have Bill Nickus here, the attorney from Hudson Falls. The project is called the Sandy Hill Arts Center, and I'll turn the floor over. Mr. Nickus. Sure.
Thank you very much for your time today. Executive Committee heard a bit about the background of the Masonic Temple in Hudson Falls. I'll try to be brief. Masonic Temple is a 5-story brick building in Hudson Falls in our downtown, built in 1901. It is a monster of a building, taken down many prior owners, and it now is in a pretty dilapidated condition and has been for some time. I bought it at a foreclosure for $138,000 in order to save the building from further deterioration, hoping that with grants and so forth we could save it. The building has received SHPO approval of its current plans. It is in our historic district. It's a contributing building to the downtown. And as we speak, it's been for quite some time an eyesore. I've been encouraged by the community to do whatever we can to save it, to bring it back to a contributing building for the downtown and the community. Obviously, one of the most important factors is how do we fund the operating expenses for what is a 22,000 square foot building. Heating system is antiquated, electric is the old knob and tube electric, everything has to be redone. It requires, for handicapped accessibility, an elevator to the 5th floor with a new fire escape. The old one no longer meets code. That alone is over $300,000. The building cannot accommodate enough revenues to address debt service, taxes, insurance, and operating expenses going forward. Right now, the project entails a first floor that currently is occupied by a clothing boutique and a photographic gallery, the McKernan Gallery, which is an arts-related gallery. The rear part of the first floor is to be a restaurant. Hopefully, it's going to be renovated for that purpose. The second floor is right now the only revenue-producing hospital, and that would be offices for the Council for Prevention. They're currently located in Hudson Falls. They're a state-funded organization that had their budget cut, so they have had to search for other space. They haven't been able to find any other space in our locality. Came to us and asked if we would renovate the second floor space to accommodate them, and that's part of the project. Third, fourth, and fifth floors are really what we're calling the Arts Center. Very unique space. The entire project is very unique. The third and fourth floor, rear 2/3, is what we call the gym. It doesn't have a floor going through to separate third and fourth floors. It's just like a gym, with 10-foot high historic windows with arches and features on the inside that are absolutely beautiful but in deteriorated condition. That space was where the Masons had their ceremonial meetings, and is part of the project would be to house artists, juried artists, not your flea market type of level, not your craft store. We have a blacksmith who's interested in space. We have what we call a wood turner. He takes exotic woods and turns them into art forms. We have a painter that is looking for space, and I think you saw in the Post-Star article actually a glass blower that used to be in the building and is still interested in doing that. We could probably put 10 to 12 juried artists in that gym space, which would be a destination point for the entire area, and which would also create the opportunity for many artists who are now working out of their homes to have a central location where they can do their work, and if they wanted to sell to the public or exhibit to the public, they could do that. The front third of the third and fourth floors used to be occupied by a family, 3 owners prior. Those 4 spaces, 2 on each floor, would be, again, occupied by artists for studios. 5th floor is completely wide open, 4,400 square feet of absolutely open space looking down on the downtown, with at one end a small stage. This is where the Masons had their entertainment for their members. I can remember it as a young man being in there, and they'd have Santa Claus on the stage, and he'd be passing out gifts to all of the families that would have come to the 5th floor. That space is to be maintained, one of the SHPO requirements. It is available for weddings, for example. A restaurant could cater it. It's available for music, for theater. We have a group that wants to do yoga. Any number, limited by your own imagination, is what you could do with 4,200 square feet of space as a venue for entertainment or other activities. As I say, very unique. I looked through some of the projects that you've approved in the past. I haven't been able to put the square peg in the square hole. I've got a lot of round pegs. I don't know if it fits, and that's why I'm looking for your guidance before I waste any more of your time on public hearings or meetings to see if in fact this project will meet your guidelines. I looked in your manual to see if there was any language there that would support this kind of project. I see under the state statute, your general municipal law, that one of the policies is to promote cultural and historic resources, certainly cultural on the side of the arts, and historic, it speaks for itself. The other areas that I looked at seem to focus on the impact on the local economy. On page 16 of your manual, there are 8 what you call measures of significance that are supposed to provide a beneficial impact upon the local economy. I think that this project meets most of those. Obviously, the most important is jobs. We're probably going to have 12 to 15 different construction disciplines in that building over the next 6 months, mostly local work with the exception of the elevator, which comes out of Albany. Jobs retained, we're looking at the Council for Prevention. They've got about 10 or 12 office staff that could be relocated if they can't find space, because they can't stay where they are currently. The restaurant would certainly have jobs. I'd be guessing as to the number of jobs, how many a restaurant would have, how many would be featured in the arts section, how many would be featured in the uses for the 5th floor. I'd be guessing, but certainly there'd be jobs there. The cost benefit, we're looking at certainly sales tax revenues. We're certainly bringing in business from outside. You've got a category called Tenant Characteristics, moderate priced rental space for startup and small businesses. There are at least a dozen artists that would be featured in the building. All of them would be independent. A tourist destination, we think that it's a combination of arts, history, restaurant. We'd be drawing from the entire area, especially since the 3 that are interested right now are not located in any specific location. They work out of their homes. They're looking for a local destination, which would bring tourists. You have a category called uniqueness, which certainly this is, upgrade to a distressed area. This location does meet the definition of the statute. It's a distressed area. Unfortunately, Hudson Falls is well below the poverty line. It's almost 30% poverty level in Hudson Falls. Project supported by the community. I can tell you there isn't one person that opposes what we're trying to do with this building. Looks down upon Jugget Park. It's a central location. Nobody wants an eyesore anymore. Project involves redevelopment of an old structure for a new purpose. That's certainly what this represents. The structure is over 100 years old and is in drastic need of renovation. And then lastly, you have a category called its impact on existing businesses. All of our local businesses are looking for more people coming downtown. Each one is a potential customer. All of our local business community, we have a nonprofit called Phoenix Rising that is membered by everybody in the downtown area. They all support it. They see the numbers of people coming to downtown. There's nothing more than a benefit to them as well. We're compatible with the next door Strand Theater, which is fortunately being very successful bringing people downtown for the arts, for music, for theater, and we're nothing but a compliment to them. So, again, I'm trying to fit the round peg in the square hole maybe. I'm looking for your guidance as whether this is something that you feel would be in the best interest of the community. It needs a pilot based on the operating expenses. It does not cover the nut at this point in time. It's a loss, but we're hopeful that with the pilot and hopefully some grants, we're going to apply for historic tax credits to see if we can make the economics fit what is a massive project. So you're one stop on the equation. We're hopefully you can support it. And again, we're just looking for your guidance.
Mr. O'Brien?
So, Bill, I laud you taking an old building and trying to repurpose it and give downtown Hudson Falls a big boost. One of the things we've been struggling with, you heard our jobs and full-time equivalencies, is that we've gone through this with at least 2 or 3 other projects this year that have come up to us. And one of the stumbling blocks is that you're talking about jobs being created on the construction on a temporary basis. And the other jobs you're talking about are essentially created by other organizations, not your organization. And
Occupants, yes.
In the read we got out of it, and we're certainly willing to relook at this, is that it should be your organization as your corporation creating the jobs for it. So that's where we have to look at it, and I know that in one potentially large project coming up, we did do that evaluation, and because it wasn't directly the pilot attached to the restaurant, for example, coming in place, the jobs were not your jobs in this case, but someone else's, another corporation's jobs. That's where the stumbling block came in place. As I said, we're more than willing to look at it again, but I will tell you that was the stumbling block we got, and we just went through an ABO audit who called us out on some of the ways we looked at things, so we're repurposing what we're looking at, so.
That's an interesting
Don't get me
point that
wrong.
you mentioned, Mr. O'Brien, because not that I want to be in the restaurant business.
I understand that.
However, part of the project was to attract people who knew how to cook and how to run a restaurant business. And I have a proposal from 2 extraordinarily qualified people that are already in our community, and I won't mention their name, but they're already in the community. And their pitch to me is, we'll run it if you own it. So I'm going to be stuck with the restaurant, whether that helps this meeting or not. And I don't know how many employees would be in the restaurant, but that is mine. The 5th floor and the gym are under my umbrella, because we don't want to have the 5th floor and the gym, the historic spaces, controlled by another entity. So most of the building falls under my umbrella.
So the question would be, is your corporation who develops the building, and he's over here can correct me if I'm wrong, but would those restaurant, if you operate it, and the other 2 entities, would that be under the same corporation?
Well, I would set up a separate LLC just for liability purposes, but yeah, I would be the owner of those spaces.
We would certainly have to look at it and have to see what's qualified, what would qualify, what wouldn't qualify. I know that we did one project in Greenwich that on the surface didn't meet the criteria, but we were able to look at it in a different way and approve it. But in that case, they had jobs working for the same corporation who applied for the pilot, so
Right.
that's what we're looking at.
That would be the case here, but I can't tell you how many, because I'd be speculating until we are in operation. So, and I know that jobs is the most important thing that IDAs look at. Again, I was trying to find the square peg. So I'm looking on your material terms definition, and there was what you're calling a non-numeric material term, which is outside of the jobs category, and the first factor was redevelopment of an old structure for a new purpose. That was one of the more important ones. And then on your definition of highly distressed area, you actually had a provision on page 20 where the minimum number of jobs could be waived if the project is in a highly distressed area, and I think we qualify for that. But again, I know that the jobs is the main driving force of an IDA, which is why I'm here. If it's something that doesn't meet your criteria, I certainly understand that.
Like I said, we're more than willing to take a look at it. I would defer to the 2 behind us to figure out where the jobs fit in the structure, and we'll lean on them, so. Just like everyone else relies on you as an attorney.
Mr. Kamano?
They don't rely on me to cook.
Bill, I echo Mr. O'Brien. Anything that would help the Hudson Falls area would be terrific, but I have to
I have to ask you, it seems like the fulcrum of this is that restaurant. It seems that way.
Fulcrum is actually the arts.
It is?
That's third, fourth, and fifth floor are devoted to that activity. The restaurant is hopefully going to be some kind of a revenue producer. It's the back half of the first floor only. The rest is art center, and the second floor office.
There's two questions then. One is, if it's the arts, which goes back to Mr. O'Brien, you've got several companies, how do we fit that little round peg into the square hole? And the other is, and because I can say this because my wife and I have done this many, many times over the years, it seems that restaurants have a difficult time staying in business.
That's what I said to these people. That's why you're putting me in that situation. But it's the only way to get it off the ground.
Okay.
And the rest of the building, maybe the example I can give you is the TD Bank building that Mr. Hoffman has in Hudson Falls. All that is office space. There's no employees of Mr. Hoffman that are in the building. He rents. My model is similar, except we're not renting other than the second floor. We're renting to offices. The third, fourth, and fifth floor will be rented to artists, all under my umbrella.
The third and fourth floors, two separate floors, or is all one bigger?
The gym, 2/3 of the third and fourth floor is
Are open.
One open,
Okay.
and in the front third are 4 spaces, third and fourth floor.
Joe. You can see on...
Fire insurance must be big. You got a glass blower and a what do you call it?
I'm thinking about the glass blower, to be honest with
And
you.
what's the other one?
Wood turner and a blacksmith.
And a blacksmith.
And a blacksmith.
Fourth floor, but you're putting fire, I don't know.
I know it.
Put in a new sprinkler system in
There you go. There you go.
Unfortunately, the fire department's
They're right across
across
the
the
street.
street.
Exactly.
That helps with insurance.
We're not talking about a not-for-profit.
No, sir.
Okay.
Although it may turn out to be that.
Depending on how the restaurant goes.
Keep the jobs, so we don't worry about your profit.
Mr. Whitehead?
Yeah, I think I mentioned some of these at the executive session as well, but on the bottom of page 20, which is our description of what's eligible, under uniform tax abatement policy, it does say that projects not meeting the above criteria shall be eligible for a 45D tax abatement, and that's something that we do not administer, and I would encourage you to look at that. But what it does say about this is the Industrial Development Agency, industrial. And what it does say here is that eligible projects are limited to manufacturing, remanufacturing, assembly processing, warehouse, wholesale distribution, product research and development, and limited office functions. It goes to expand that limited office functions, which limited the following: communications, computer programming, data processing, financial services. And that's within minimum 10 new jobs, which, as you said, could be waived. It says if you have 25 new jobs, it might be including, but not limited to professional offices, recreational facilities, railroad facilities, and retail facilities. But truly, my opinion is, while it does seem like it's very similar to the Hudson Falls project that you mentioned, I never would have been in favor of that. I think you ought to look at the 45B option.
I have looked at the 485B. It's some part of the equation. Obviously, a pilot would be far more beneficial to the operating costs.
So 485B is a pilot, but it's not as generous. It starts out at 50%. It goes for 10 years, dropping 5% each year. It tapers off, whereas pilots we offer are considerably more generous.
There's certainly, Mr. Whitehead, plenty of language in what you're reading to deny this kind of project. I understand that, and that's why I'm asking for guidance. There's also, I think, plenty of language that would support it in view of the dilapidated nature, the distressed area, the what you're calling the material terms, which take it outside of jobs. There are a whole list of criteria that you certainly could hang your hat on, but I can certainly understand whichever way you go.
Final statement, I should have said earlier on, but I do think this is a fine project for the community, and I hope to see it supported. I just don't see it,
Mr. O'Brien?
So, here's what I'd like to proceed, Bill, is I'd like to, I didn't get a copy of your presentation. I'd like to get a copy of your presentation, have our legal people look at it. They're much more knowledgeable what we can and can't do, to just evaluate it. So in all fairness to you, we're looking at it, because I think it's a great project. So if that's all right with you, I'd like to do that. We can get back to you probably the next month.
Sure. I didn't have a written presentation, but I can certainly put one together that describes what we're talking about today.
You had some notes there that probably encompass most of it.
Oh, this is your manual. I'm ready to go.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to find that square peg.
Well, okay, okay.
Mr. Leggett?
Yeah, thank you. It is a great project, where it's located across from the village hall and so on. It's definitely a beautiful building. Were you looking just for a pilot?
Yes.
Okay, and right now I see, from Washington County GIS, total assessed value is $140,000.
Correct.
So it'd be just, and
For the improvements above that, yes.
Not sales tax?
I'm not asking for that. The pilot, the real property tax is a significant part of the operating expense.
yeah.
So we're looking for the pilot. The sales tax and the mortgage tax, they're one hit during construction, so I'm not looking for that. It's the long term we're looking for.
We in Washington County don't like that option. We like to ignore that option.
I hear you.
It's good for your taxes, Bill.
You're right.
Any further questions?
This is the appropriate step is for you to make an application.
I would,
I mean, it's good that you've come and given us a heads up. I think put together an application,
Mr. O'Brien?
We rule by the majority, Mr. Whitehead and some others, they say no.
I would agree. I would just say that before he goes through this, putting together it, if he structures it, we can have our legal people look at it and say yes, maybe no, or firmly no. There's no sense in putting Bill through a lot of application work to do
Prefer
it.
to have an application how can you evaluate?
Well, I mean, I think it's, I mean, if you wanted Bill to put together something in writing, I mean, for him to take his time to, you might as well just do the application. I mean, it'd be the same.
I would think so.
Yeah, I mean, rather than,
Normally people come in with an application.
Mr. Wyatt?
Just a question, would there be a cost associated with the application for either Mr. Nikas or our costs for legal assistance, et cetera?
well, what's the fee? 500?
500.
500?
Yes.
So, with the application, there's a $500 fee, then whatever
That would cover your costs?
we would do, we would review it, we would let you know. I mean, the project, it is eligible if, under the retail exception, because it's in a former Empire zone, so it's one of the exceptions. That said, I mean, it's obviously up to you all how you view those exceptions.
But how does the jobs kick into it? Because we got our discussion from AVO about our jobs return. How does that fit into it? I mean, I was under the impression from other projects we talked out, I don't know if you were involved, but I know your boss, Bob was, and he said that the jobs had to be created by the project itself, not by subsidiary corporations or, I don't know the relationship to it.
I don't know where that issue started.
I thought that it was tied to being able to get the information to support the
Right.
subsidiary employees.
So-
Not that you couldn't do it.
Right.
If you can't support it with the New York State
There was
45.
a very large project we talked about. There was a very large project we talked about that this came up. And the project was a lot like Bill's describing in a different manner. And what Bob said was that without direct jobs being created, those individual corporations have to come and apply for their own pilot.
Well, the landowner is the one that would get the pilot because they're the owner of the property, they're paying however that owner decides to pass through to their tenant, I mean, you might have a triple net lease, you're just passing on all the expenses associated with that property, then the tenant gets the benefit of that.
Mr. Camano?
Dave, I don't want to put words in your mouth, number one, and number two, I don't want Mr. Nikas to have to spend $500 for nothing. Why not?
You can do an application without...
Well, but wait, why not have certificates together in writing, similarly to what you did here, how you thought it fit in. If you want to review it, Dave, and I don't want to do it just alone, but somebody, before we spend $500 and make an application, we don't even know if it fits.
I'm more deferring to
Okay.
the people back here,
But I don't
because
want
I'm
to...
not a legal analyst, I'm just trying to put together information I've heard in the past.
Yeah, but you have been there, and you do have some background, and at that point, you could say for us, if we want to have it that way, it really doesn't fit, or, you know, we can make this fit. Then we can go with the $500 application.
Yeah, I think if you did like a 1 or 2 page synopsis, get to the lawyers, let the lawyers look at it. That way you're not spending $500, you're not running up legal fees, which probably will be your responsibility.
Suggesting
Who knows about legal fees?
I'd have to ask for the mortgage tax exemption if... I will put together a narrative and, you know, to be upfront, it will be a pitch to explain why I feel that the job factor here, which could be 4 jobs in the restaurant, is actually the least important to the local economy than everything else being done in the building. For example, I think you approved over $1 million project for a microbrewery. Restaurant not much different than a microbrewery, and that microbrewery told you that they would have 8 employees. I'm pretty sure that a restaurant would need at least 4 with less investment than that, and also provide all the other benefits that we're talking about to the community. So I can certainly do that.
Isn't the application basically the model? I mean, if it fits into the application, the correct answers, that leads to a determination that
And you don't need the $500 until you've actually submitted it as an application.
I think we're putting ourselves
I think
into
it's
a
the
secondary
format for the-
approval process that
You don't want to go through.
No, really.
No. We want to see if it fits. I mean, he's talking about 4, I think it'd be more than 4 jobs in the restaurant, but that's just one section. Dave brought up the fact that we have to look at it from several companies' worth of people. I mean, aren't we looking at the number of jobs with the...
It costs him nothing to fill out the application, it costs him when he submits it.
That's right.
Going through the actual
Right.
project, filling out the application, he'll have his own answer already when he fills that out, whether it fits or not.
I would hope.
So I think then he would decide whether to submit it or not.
I think the issue is definition of jobs, and that's what I want to focus on.
That's what he wants to do.
Well, that's why this has been very beneficial to me. I know I have to structure my pitch to Mr. Whitehead to address that concern, which I certainly recognize, and everybody else's comments are helpful to me in drafting that. So,
Mr. Whitehead?
Yeah, you might look also that there was a lawsuit in Western New York where basically, these are eligible jobs, but they were jobs that were basically pirated from one part of the state to another part of the state, or one part of the town to another part of the town. And the IDA proved that, and they came out on the losing side because these were considered not new jobs, but just jobs within the state that moved around. So you should consider that as well.
I don't think that scenario applies here. The Council for Prevention, jobs that are retained are not being pirated. They're being retained in our locality, otherwise they go somewhere else.
Somewhere else in the state.
If they don't have a spot, they go somewhere else, and they would have to leave us.
And but us is in the way the ADO looks at it, it's in the state.
We're talking about retaining them here. I'm not going to Saratoga and stealing their jobs and bringing them here.
Right, I'm just saying if there were 10 jobs in the state of New York before and after, it doesn't matter whether you're in Saratoga or...
Okay, yes, I understand your point. Right. I think it's the restaurant that would be the new jobs you're looking for. The rest, there's certainly space for jobs. It's just so difficult to quantify it.
Interestingly enough, though, it fits with what Mr. Whitehead just said. You are going to be stealing people, but I don't know how you're never not going to steal people from somewhere.
A manufacturing job that would bring people in.
Yeah.
And that's what the IDA is.
It's really...
Right, and to build off that idea, an IDA in Buffalo or Tonawanda, New York, you're looking at industrial as a particular thing. And up here in the North Country, industrial and job creation is another animal altogether. If you can create 5 or 6 jobs with a business, you're doing pretty good. Any of our small towns are seeing that is where the growth factor is. And that's the nature of the business, so that if you can help incubate 6 different companies that, total 24 jobs within this building, we are doing real well for this area. Whereas if anybody came into a metropolitan area and said, I'm going to create 24 jobs, manufacturing, they'll go, what are you doing? When you're talking thousands or hundreds of people. So this is a project that I do think fits the scale of our area.
But not our charters, was my problem.
So we do need to get, right.
I think the project's wonderful, don't get me wrong. I just know we were called out on the carpet by the ABO, so I've been concentrating on this, so we need to be correct when we do it.
Correct.
Because he would suffer if we weren't correct.
Yep.
But it's an interesting, it is an interesting thing to bring up. Whatever your corporation is, if the Nickus Corporation is now an incubator and puts all of these things together under that incubation, does that fit? I don't know.
Mr. Biddle?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd also like to point to what Mr. Nickus pointed out, and it's within our booklet, distressed areas. Is vitally important because it isn't just about that building and what happens. It's about transforming an area, and in the case of Hudson Falls, bringing it back to its former glory. And with somebody investing money into a building, the benefit that's received is with a pilot that the tenants can actually afford to pay for it, right? Can afford to pay the rent. Where with the pilot, the rent, and I'm making things up, could be double what they are. I don't know what the number is, Mr. Nickus, and you probably don't at this point either, but pretty close. But that's what makes it affordable for a tenant and for job creation and incubation. So distressed areas, upgrading, not just that building, but it seems to catch fire. You don't want that, sorry. But it seems to catch on around the area. And secondly is giving that through pilots. And doesn't the town of Kingsbury have to approve any?
Town of Kingsbury does.
So,
Village of Hudson Falls.
the village of Hudson Falls would have to okay.
Town of
No,
Kingsbury.
the town.
Town of
Town.
Kingsbury.
Thank you. The town of Kingsbury would have to approve that as well.
And I have spoken to Supervisor Hogan, and he was going to contact Mr. Nickus. I don't know if you've heard from him yet.
I have, yes. Village
I think
doesn't have a planning board.
I think it's important to remember that Bill has other opportunities, even to get a pilot, other than the IDA. So he's investigating, so we need to make sure we're doing the right thing, and he needs to make sure he's doing the right thing for him. And my concern is if we do something wrong, I'm not saying against the project, because I'm not, he could be penalized if we do something wrong. So we need to iron through these questions, which is the 3rd time I've dealt with these questions in the past 6 months.
Not denying any of that, Mr. O'Brien. What I'm saying is the parts that Mr. Nickus has highlighted here, as far as, I'm just saying where I stand as far as our own bylaws and book, that the distressed is very appealing, and that area is very appealing, that as a state entity, 1, state authority, and 2, is that the town of Kingsbury would actually have final say. I'm just reminding everybody here at the table.
Mr. LaFleur?
Just going back to, how many seat restaurant is it going to be?
There is capacity in that space for 100.
So that's going to create a lot more than, if you were talking 4 jobs, isn't that like 20 to 30 jobs?
It really will boil down to the restaurant model. We don't want to be competing with others that are the same. So maybe it'll be lesser numbers of occupants for a more specialized menu? I don't know that yet, but I know the
Anything-
space will accommodate 100.
Anything above a diner will not be competing with most of, Hudson Falls, which
Yeah.
is great.
You're right.
But no, I think don't undersell that, you know what I mean?
I'm not.
Because
But it-
most of the restaurants I have, no matter how small they are, it's still 15, 20, 30 people.
There's a lot of turnover in restaurants in Hudson Falls.
Pardon?
There's been a lot of turnover in restaurants in Hudson Falls, especially at the upscale.
You're right. You're right, but we have a lot of diners, and my model doesn't want to compete with our diners, too. That's a consideration. This is more of a community project. So we're trying to look for something different.
Understood.
Mr. Campbell?
Your second floor has what group coming again?
The Council for Prevention,
Council for-
they offer resources and counseling for those who are in recovery.
And I know those jobs are just sustained, but not from outside of they're gonna stay in the state somewhere anyway, so
Yes,
that
they
part
will.
we can't argue about. But I think with the situation or the status of the community and the state itself, I think having that in an area where it's readily available to the people that are gonna use it, I think that is a bigger thing than we're giving it credit to.
Without belaboring it, I think we should let them do the application and go from there.
Okay.
Get the facts.
Okay? Well, this discussion has been very helpful to me. Again, I appreciate your time and helping give me some guidance.
We'll see what we can do.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Okay, before, I have one more item under new business. Sky Zone, Rand Entertainment.
Ran Entertainment.
Rand Entertainment. They own the lot that's adjacent to their building. They would like to incorporate that lot into the existing lot that we have a pilot on. So they're not getting any benefit, other than just that lot is there if there should be any future expansion. So it doesn't entitle them to any benefits from the IDA, but we would have to approve that, and they could have one lot, otherwise a tax.
Well, otherwise, they want to merge their lots together,
there
so
you
they
go,
have
you
one
said it.
lot. And so if they can't merge the lots if we don't approve the amendment to the pilot, there'll be no mechanism for the town to tax that adjacent lot, because they want to merge it into one lot, because it's more beneficial for them from a perspective of developing, because it'll make the lot size larger, so it'll allow for expansion.
Mr. Campbell?
They have no plan at this time, there's no application
Is
or
there any downside to us merging this piece of property?
No, it's just that they would be paying that tax. So I spoke to the assessor, and so whatever taxes are due now would just be incorporated into this new, and it would just be paid through the pilot, as opposed to generating a tax bill.
Mr. Whitehead?
My question is, this the lot just to the west of it, has a dilapidated...
Yeah, it has, yeah.
That would be an advantage.
Yeah, I think the plan would be to not have that there.
Looking for guidance from the members? Or
Ours would be we would be amending the pilot to include this new lot, and then, but they get no benefit. They just pay 100% of what they're paying right now.
Format?
Yeah, because we're gonna have to sign an amended pilot. We can do it next month if you don't have to do it. If you just want to think about it, or if you have questions, or if you want me to get more information, or
I thought you're not preparing to vote on it tonight.
it's up to you. I don't think it's
We
necessary.
have something here that we're moving?
we don't. It would be to...
Sorry, it's not on the agenda. It was something that came up.
It would be to merge this lot into...
I know what it is, but how do we do it? That's what...
We would have to approve an amended pilot agreement.
What could we do tonight if we were going to...
You could,
Or is it not ready for tonight?
We could push it to next month, that's fine. I think he's just looking to merge it possibly by tax status date, so that's March 1st.
Why? What do you need to merge?
If he merges the lot, then he can expand on it, and because the lot size will be bigger, so it puts him in a different category for zoning. It's a zoning advantage for him.
I would move it tonight. I think it's an advantage for everybody.
We have a motion on the floor.
Second.
Second, Joe. Or roll call on that? Roll call?
Dave O'Brien,
Sure.
Joe LaTira,
Yes?
Craig Leggett,
Yes.
Bruce Ferguson.
Yes.
Jenny Sullivan.
Yes.
Nick Romano.
Yes.
Travis Whitehead.
Yes.
Brian Campbell.
Yes.
Matt Simpson.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
2.2 acre.
do you have anything further, Craig, on that?
No, that was the 2.2 acre lot.
Yeah, the one rate, yeah.
Okay, there being no further business under the IDA, we would, I would look for a motion to adjourn and move into
Make a motion?
CDC. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Kamado. Roll call. We need a roll call to establish a quorum.
Yeah. Dave
Motion to
O'Brien.
adjourn.
Joe LaTira,
Yes.
Craig Leggett,
Yes.
Bruce Ferguson.
Yes.
Jenny Sullivan. Here. Nick Romano.
Yes.
Travis Whitehead.
Yes.
Brian Campbell.
Here.
Matt Simpson.
Here. We still have a quorum. We're in the CDC. We need a motion to approve the minutes of the last board meeting, November 19th, 2018.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, RFP for Audit Services.
Piggybacks on the other one, because he gave us one price, so at some point we're going to need him to break that out based on how we're budgeting it. But it obviously won't go above the 9,600, so I guess, but we should approve it on this end too.
So moved.
We have a second. Mr. Ferguson, roll call.
Pump some oxygen into this room.
Dave O'Brien.
Yep.
Joe LaTira.
Yes.
Craig Leggett.
Yes.
Bruce Ferguson. Jenny Sullivan. Yes. Nick Romano.
Stay.
Travis Whitehead.
Yes.
Brian Campbell.
Yes.
Matt Simpson.
Yes. Okay, final budget approval for 2019.
County, yeah.
What's that?
Final budget approval for
Yeah,
2019.
I don't think we made any changes on this one. Yeah, same. You make the motion?
Made a motion, second. Mr. O'Brien. Roll call.
Yes, you were.
That's what I heard.
Dave O'Brien. Joe LaTira.
Yes?
Craig Leggett. Bruce Ferguson.
Yes.
Jenny Sullivan. Yeah. Nick Romano.
Yes.
Travis Whitehead. Brian Campbell.
Yes.
Matt Simpson.
Yes. Okay, 2019 meeting schedule.
Bruce?
Mr. Kamado, seconded by Mr. O'Brien.
Doesn't have a...
Roll call. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Anything further? Any other business? Motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Everybody.
Second. Everybody. See you down the road.
Okay.
On the motion.